Okay, we have all been there. You have a nice new skein of yarn, and then you reach inside to get the center tail so you can work from the inside of the ball, which is nice because then it doesn't flip all over the floor. And you try to pull out that center tail, and you have a yarn barf, right? That's what we call that. So how do you deal with this big mess, right? Well, the first thing you have to do, of course, is you have to figure out where exactly that center tail is. After you pull it out, you should be able to kind of look in there and figure it out. Whoop. And it's okay to kind of pull out layers. You just don't want to grab one thread and yank on it until you're sure that it is the tail. See, this is a fine example of how your yarn barf can get out of control here. Where did it go? Let's see. Well, we know that the tail has to be here somewhere because there's only one strand connected here. So we're going to work our way backwards. There we go. Oh, I found it. Here it is. So you got to find that tail. And then if you want to wind a center pull ball, because let's face it, it's easier to use a center pull ball unless you have a yarn bowl, and then your yarn can just spin around in there, and that's fine. And that's what you're originally trying to do when you ended up with this yarn barf, right? You wanted a center pull ball. And sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. So this is a way to fix that problem. You find your yarn tail, you have all this big mess, and you're gonna hold that yarn tail in your hand like this. And then you're going to make a figure 8 around your fingers and do this somewhere around, I don't know, 8 or 10 times. Okay, we're just going back and forth, making that figure 8. So you have a substantial amount to hang on to. And then you're going to pinch your figure 8 right at the center where everything crosses. And I'm still holding the yarn tail with these fingers here. We're going to pull that right off, and we're going to place our finger right here at the center like we're pointing at it. There's the middle. And then we're going to fold up these 2 sets of loops around our finger. We're still holding that yarn tail, the beginning yarn tail, and that's important because we need to know where that is. All right, now we're going to start winding this way. Okay, to kind of control all of that. We're winding it. There we go. And we can begin to wind a ball. Now I'm still going to be holding on to this, so that way when we want to pull our end, we know exactly where it is. We're not going to cover it up. So see, I can start winding at a little bit of an angle here, like this. And as you build up a little more yarn there, you can turn your yarn on your finger and keep winding. And you may have a little detangling that you have to do here. And it's okay if you have to. It's okay to cut your yarn and then tie it again if you have to get it through a tangly mess. Because even though that seems like, normally we try to avoid that and you don't want to cut your yarn, it can save a lot of time, and you have to think about what your time's worth. So you just continue to wind around your finger, twisting that around every time you need to kind of rotate. Let's see, here we go. So I'm kind of spreading out my yarn so that it doesn't get too stuck to itself. And we're going to continue working around like this. Okay, so here's a point where you could spend a lot of time detangling your yarn here, but it seems like there's kind of a knot that has formed. So I'm going to clip my yarn right here. There, and we just undid that little knot. Now I don't like to do this too often because I don't want to have a bunch of ends to weave in later. But I have learned over time, before I used to just untangle everything and make absolutely sure that I never had to cut my yarn. And then I thought, you know what? Weaving in a couple of little ends doesn't really take that long. All right, so we're going to just continue to keep winding, keeping your finger inside that ball. Okay, you can see it's getting a little easier to wind. It's getting a little bit larger. We've wound most of our tangle up. Here we go. So what you can do at this point is you can just keep winding, pulling from the skein if you want, Or you can leave them both connected and you can just use one and then use the second one. So sometimes what I'll do, if this ball is pretty small, I'm gonna pull my finger out because I'm done winding for right now. If the ball is pretty small, sometimes you can just pop that ball in here like this, and then you still have your center pull right here. So sometimes I will do that. This is a little borderline. It's maybe just a little bit bigger than I would have, you know, because I did have to distort that just a little bit. You can certainly put it in there and then use the center pull, and then it'll pull this whole ball, and then it'll pull all of that next, because of course it's connected. Or if you don't want to do that, you can cut your yarn, or you can also just, this is what I normally do, is I just leave them next to each other if I'm going to crochet from it right away. So, you know, because we left this out, we have a center pull ball. So you can see right here, it's just going to come out really nice, just like that. Okay, so you could just, you know, if you wanted to ball this entire thing up that way, you can absolutely do that. And then it'll just be in one center pull ball. But since it doesn't have any tangles in it here or here, I usually just leave it. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed watching me detangle my yarn. And I know some of you guys can relate to the yarn barf that happened here. And I hope that this helps you solve that problem when it happens to you the next time.